Hello, welcome inside another edition of Fever Insider Live. Brian Haenchen, Chloe Peterson here with you, getting you ready for Game 3 between the Aces and the Fever. Chloe's fresh off of Fever practice. Chloe, how was it? How are you? How are things?
Doing good. Almost missed my connection coming back yesterday, but I didn't. I went straight from my first plane, went down 2 gates, walked straight onto my second plane. It was great. Not nerve-wracking at all, but I made it.
I'll be honest. So Chloe's texting us updates in our team chat that we have as a working group, and my heart dropped for you. You said that your flight was canceled. Then you sent the subsequent updates. I was just like, oh, God bless America. This is brutal.
I will tell you, one of my biggest pet peeves is when pilots are wrong. Like the whole reason my flight was late was because like American Airlines had some kind of like computer issue, so they couldn't get the clearance to like push off like the maintenance clearance. So like they couldn't get the clearance through the computer, so they had to do it manually. And originally the pilot, because the flight was supposed to take off at like 6:25. And at 6:25, he was like, we're just waiting for manual clearance. It should only be a few minutes. No, it was not a few minutes. And then at 6:40, he was like, we have to get manual clearance. It should only be 10 minutes. 30 minutes later, we finally take off. And then he was like, well, this is a American Airlines wide thing. So if you're worried about your connections, you shouldn't be, because they're going to be delayed too. My connection was not delayed.
Very reassuring, wonderful stuff. God, that's brutal. No. 2 times in a row. The worst is, and we're just BSing here to give people time to get in. My worst is when I fell asleep on my flight at 6 a.m. thinking that I'd wake up in Chicago or in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I did not. I woke up on the tarmac again in Chicago, had a panic attack, basically, wondering what the hell was going on, in a sweat because the heat wasn't working or something like that in the plane. It was brutal. And then obviously that trip to Connecticut when it started with a bird getting caught in the engine before we even took off, which was rather ominous. Chloe fed up with the pilots. Yeah, Chloe's here spitting takes. We get folks involved on that note to get involved in the live chat. We'll try and pop some in as we go along. And also do a Q&A session at the end. Chloe, we'll get this out of the way. We're up to 20 right now. So while I get some stats pulled together, I'll just let you give folks your spoiler-free or spoiler-filled review.
Well, it's been like 2 weeks since the finale, so I feel like I can just give the spoiler. Basically, the finale was good. I liked the finale in some way. I thought it was a little bit rushed at the end because, we only got like 2 minutes of Belly and Conrad being happy together. But anyway, I enjoyed the finale. I enjoyed the Belly and Conrad got together. And I'm really happy we're getting a movie because, we never saw the happiness of Belly and Conrad. And I get the whole point of the series is them finding their way back to each other and not like, being together. But I still thought it was dumb that we never saw them happy together. But yes, I enjoyed it. It was great.
Is that it? I was waiting for more from you to give me more time again to do some math here. But
I can do more.
Give us another minute and a half. Give us 90 seconds.
I really enjoyed the bit throughout the second half of the Summer I Turned Pretty season where Jeremiah and Conrad's dad, Adam, just kept bringing champagne from Belly and Jeremiah's failed wedding. And the entire, like at any event, like at Thanksgiving, he brought Jeremiah just champagne from the wedding. And then Jeremiah like was becoming an up and coming chef and doing this cook for a bunch of influencers. Adam showed up, brought champagne from the wedding. So
that bastard.
Yes, the Out of the Woods train station chase was a masterpiece. I saw multiple edits that put together her running away from Jeremiah after he cheated on her and she found out about that. And then it would just cut to her running to Conrad in the train station. Perfect edit. Loved it. Loved running her to it. We don't need to talk about the specifics where she doesn't have a phone. She didn't have her passport. She didn't have any money for the train. Did she get fined for being on the train without buying a ticket? Probably, but Conrad's rich, so it doesn't matter. He can pay her fine. But anyway, those are my thoughts.
Well done, Chloe. Well done. That was wonderful. Our viewership went up. Obviously, we set that up that way so that it would go up for the first time. But let's dive into the topic at hand. Fever Aces Game 3 coming up, 7:30 p.m. Friday. Big news, obviously, Lexi Hull, late addition to the availability report going into game 2 with the back injury. She played, didn't look really comfortable. You were practice today. Obviously, it's been in the ticker, but I'll let you tell the folks what Stephanie Hull said, and then also what you saw during practice of Lexi Hull. Stephanie White, excuse me. What she said about Lexi Hull and what you saw of Lexi Hull during practice.
Well, yeah, so she was not participating in the portion of practice open to media. Obviously, we don't know what happened in the hour and a half before they opened practice to media. But they were doing the 5-on-0 drill that they usually do in shoot-arounds and practices. And Ariel Powers was filling in for her at some points. Shea Petty was filling in for her on the first team at some points too. So, but obviously the big part of it was Lexi Hull was not practicing. She was in practice attire, and she was just standing off to the side. She was wearing the heat therapy pad that she was wearing during shoot-around on Tuesday, and that she wears on the bench and has worn on the bench for the past couple games. And but yeah, so we talked to Stephanie White about it after practice, and she said Lexi was held out for precautionary reasons. The Fever had some issues with flying home yesterday. They were supposed to fly back after the game, directly after the game on the red eye, but they had some maintenance issues, so they weren't able to leave until Wednesday morning. So they kind of lost what would have been an off day, rest day, because they didn't get back until later in the afternoon, obviously, with the 3-hour time change. So yeah, it was mostly a precautionary reason. Stephanie White said that barring any setback today or later today or tomorrow morning, that Lexi Hull will be available, but it was just a precautionary reason.
Based on track record, based on everything that she's been through this year, it seems safe to say likely that she plays tomorrow night. I mean, I don't even know how it'd be a serious setback, right? Like, to hold that woman out of a game.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think they're just worried about, swelling or any aggravations, because back injuries can be tricky. You can aggravate it just by doing nothing. Just by existing, you can aggravate a back injury. Sleeping wrong can aggravate it. All kinds of things can aggravate them. But I think obviously she'll play through it. From what I think, Stephanie White didn't seem too worried about it. So yeah, I think she'll be available tomorrow. Likely stiff like she was on Tuesday, but she'll be available. I would think.
That's good news for the Fever, because again, it's at the point now of how many hits can a team take before the dam finally breaks. And I mean, honestly though, she was really effective in game 2 despite everything. 29 minutes, 15 points on 5 3-pointers in a 90-68 loss. So we'll see what Lexi Hull brings tomorrow night when she plays. Again, we encourage people to get involved in the chat. We see some of the questions. We're going to pop in, do them all at once, unless they're prevalent to the topic at hand. We'll maybe flash them up there and just kind of acknowledge them in passing. But otherwise, if you have questions, comments in mass, we'll jump on those in mass at the end of the show. Chloe, something that next topic I want to go to is just the bench production, because it's been an issue. Tony,
can I talk one more thing about an injury?
Oh yeah, absolutely, go for it. I think I know where you're going.
Stephanie White did not have any update on Damaris Dantas.
Yes.
Damaris Dantas was also not at practice today, so I would anticipate Dantas to continue to be out tomorrow, and that would make it just over 2 weeks that she's been out, which is a little bit long when it comes to a concussion, but obviously we don't know the severity of the concussion. The only thing we really got was that she kind of knocked her head in practice on September 11th, and since then she's been out.
Concussions are scary.
Yeah.
Like it's and in her case especially, like it's especially scary when the person's able to travel, she's able to be in an arena loud, lots of lights, lots of people yelling and screaming, and be okay. And then suddenly the conditions worsen to the point that she didn't travel on this trip to Vegas, right? She didn't travel the team to Atlanta either.
She traveled to Atlanta for game 3, but she did not travel to Vegas. And I thought it was going to be one of those things where, her being in Atlanta would be a good sign in terms of her progressing through the concussion, because obviously if you have a concussion, you don't really want to be in loud environments. But I imagine she had some kind of whether it was a setback or if they thought she was progressing like faster than she actually was. Yeah.
Here's a question pertaining to the updates. If Lexi and Dantas are out, can the Fever even play? How does that work, Chloe, if the team gets down to the threshold?
I believe you need 8 available players, and that's regular season as well. 8 available players. And if Lexi and Dantas are both out, they would be down to 9, so they'd still be within the legal limit. And I'm not entirely sure what would happen if they get down to 8 or 7 players, because I've been trying to talk about this with Tony East, friend of the pod, and he was looking back through multiple years of past signings, and there are no evidence of past signings in the playoffs at all. And he does remember times where obviously multiple teams have gotten down to those numbers. So it is hopefully something the Fever won't have to worry about in terms of if they're going to have the legal limit to play, or if it's different in the playoffs either. So right now, if both Hull and Dantas are out, they'd be down to 9 players, which is still a legal number of players to play with.
I mean, if it were to happen to the Fever, honestly, any of the 4 teams remaining where they get close to that threshold, it would be very on brand for this season. Any other notable updates, Chloe, before I push this along inappropriately? Any other thoughts or notable takeaways from practice today?
I don't think so. We talked to Natasha Howard after practice. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about the physicality of this series, but Natasha Howard did not think it was any different than normal, and she's the most experienced playoff player on this team. She's been to the playoffs 11 times, and I thought that was interesting to hear from her that she didn't think the playoffs were any more physical than what she's seen before.
Interesting. Do you agree with that assessment?
I mean, I haven't been this embedded in the WNBA, I would say, as much as Natasha Howard has, but I don't think too much of it. I think a lot of what Becky Hammon was, mad about on Tuesday is that the league promised changes in calling games for this season specifically that she hasn't seen. Like, she was talking about how she was talking about how the league said they were going to call, freedom of movement. If, players or if opponents, impede the freedom of movement, that's going to be something they're going to call more effectively. And she doesn't think that's happened. And also defensive 3 seconds. She was really on about the defensive 3 seconds and how that it has never really been called effectively. And then the league said this past offseason that they were going to really focus on that, and that was going to be a point of emphasis. And it hasn't really been. So that's, I think, what made Becky Hammon so heated on Tuesday was specifically, the league said they were going to make points of emphasis on freedom of movement and defensive 3 seconds, and that just has not been the case so far.
Interesting point made by Sam, saying that Becky's planting the seeds to try and get calls for game 3 when she said that stuff. There is a bit of gamesmanship. Like, I don't disagree with that comment at face value. I mean, there is some gamesmanship, and you see it in other sports too, and I think we're seeing a little bit there. I mean, Stephanie White talked about the physicality too, albeit she was saying that there were more fouls called than necessary, correct? And then, she's gone the other way, obviously, in the past. Now, Becky Hammon took her turn and really went after them. Do you agree with that assessment that maybe just a little bit of jockeying, a little bit of gamesmanship, so to speak, or marketing by the coaches?
It could be. I mean, I think this entire season has shown that when coaches talk about officiating, all they do is get fined, and it doesn't really change that much. So I think it could also be just one of those things where Becky Hammon is sick of it. And, she obviously had multiple seasons as an assistant in the NBA, so she knows how the NBA works, and she has assistants on her staff now that were assistants in the NBA, and she's kind of comparing it to that as well. So I think that's where she's coming from in that sense.
an issue, the quality of officiating, and we see it at the college level. I mean, you've seen it, I've seen it in recent years. It just, for whatever reason, it just inconsistently called, and now we're seeing it at the WNBA level where there's some games that are just flat out bad too. Mm-hmm. That's tough to see. Chloe, let's talk a little bit about the bench. We touched on it last show with Tony. They need it to be productive. Tony wrote about that today. We've talked about it, like I said, but it's such a big piece to their success. And obviously they're thin. They have a lot, different pieces. May just be is what it is situation where they're getting, 6 points off the bench compared to 24 for Las Vegas last time out. But I mean, they're going to need to find something, right? If they have any hopes of pulling this thing out.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Fever, a lot of their, how they work is based on how their bench is. Like Game 3 against Atlanta, Game 1 against Las Vegas, their bench was very good. Game 2 against Las Vegas, I think Shea Petty was the only bench player who made a shot that game. So I think, and it's difficult too because a lot of these bench players, a lot of these players playing heavy minutes would not even be on the team at this point if the Fever did not have 5 season-ending injuries. So like obviously Odyssey Sims wouldn't be starting, Shea Petty, Aerial Powers wouldn't be getting those significant rotational minutes. But I think, and there's also the fact that they've been on this team for, Aerial Powers signed on August 23rd and Odyssey Sims signed on August 10th. So it's like they've had a lot of time to get into it, but it's also, not as much as Las Vegas or even most teams out there. But I think, they live or die by their bench, as I think a lot of teams do. So it's been very up and down in that sense.
And it's tough too because it puts additional strain. I'm thinking specifically of a Kelsey Mitchell. Well, obviously you want to keep on the floor a lot to begin with, but it just, when it's obvious that you need a breather, obvious that she's hurting and you're at a spot where you can afford to pull her out, you just don't feel comfortable because the piece that you're slotting in for her don't have the same offensive production. And it's such a stark drop off, I should say, that you don't feel comfortable doing it as Stephanie White, which is a problem, especially considering what she's playing through. If it's a shorter drop off, maybe you eat it and you go with it. But it's to the point now. There's not a ton you can do, which is a tough spot.
Yeah, and I think they're seeing that thing with Lexi Hull too. Like obviously Lexi is working through this back injury, but she's such a good defender, first of all, and she brings that offensive firepower too. Obviously, with those 5, she was basically their only 3-point shooter on Tuesday with 5, and I believe everybody else combined for 2. So you want to obviously give Lexi Hull some rest, but also you need her to play.
Yep. Here's a question on the topic. Why is Stephanie White not giving Aerial Powers more minutes to play? She can guard Jackie Young or Chelsea Gray, who was the difference makers last game. Your thoughts, Chloe?
She's playing behind Lexi Hull, first of all, I guess. And, I think Lexi Hull is, more consistent offensively. And I think their Hull and Powers are pretty much the same defensively in terms of who they can guard and how well they can guard. So it's just one of those things where obviously Hull showed it, as I just said, with those 5 3-pointers on Tuesday with a bad back. So I think it's just she's playing behind Lexi Hull, and White wants Hull in there as much as she can be.
Let me see here. I'm pulling up Basketball Reference. In her last 5 games, 6, 8, 6, 10, 15, 17, 19, she's 3 for 19 from the field. Totals up 5, 9, 10, 13 points. And offensively, that's not going to get it done. And like you said, Lexi Hull was shooting the ball well. She can defend. She's a proven commodity. And with how inconsistent this team has been offensively, it doesn't make a ton of sense to pull an option and plug something in there that's obvious, a piece that's obvious, who's obviously been struggling of late. Chloe, looking into Game 3, let's spin it ahead to that. What is your biggest takeaway? What's going to be the biggest key, you think, if the Fever have hopes of pulling this thing off?
I think it's really like the pace they play at, because Game 1 they won because they played at the pace they wanted to play at. They got that quick shooting, fast, type of game in game one, but that really fell apart in game two with, first, how much Vegas was shooting the ball and making their shots, and secondly, how much they were shooting free throws. And Steph White talked about it today after practice that, even with Vegas making all of those shots, having all those free throws, she thought, they were a little bit too slow after those types of plays, because obviously what the Fever want most is to grab the rebound, throw the ball down the court, and kind of get it in transition. But even when they have to inbound the ball after a made shot, on Tuesday, they were kind of slow in bringing the ball up the court. They were allowing Vegas's defense to get set when they could still inbound the ball quickly, run down the court, and kind of do a pseudo transition type of thing. So that was something Stephanie White really stressed today, in just being quicker with things, not allowing Vegas to get set. And obviously there's the A'ja Wilson aspect of it. A'ja Wilson really struggled in game one, going 6 of 22. But then in game two, she was 10 of 18, I believe. And I don't think it hinges as much on A'ja Wilson and how well she does. Okay, bye. But I think she. I lost my train of thought now.
I texted you to let you know that I was popping away for just a second, hoping that you wouldn't notice it, and you kept it very subtle. A'ja Wilson impact and effect on the Fever's tempo.
Obviously, I think A'ja Wilson, she's the head of the snake for Vegas, but they've also been able to beat the Aces when A'ja Wilson has had a good game. Like, there was one time earlier this season, I forgot which home game it was, but A'ja Wilson had 38 points at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and the Aces still lost. So, like, they know, or the Fever know, there are ways that A'ja Wilson can still get her points, and the Fever can still win, which is why I wonder, as of what Sam Davison said, of can you contain the others outside of A'ja, which is something I kind of talked about before this series too. Like, do you just let A'ja Wilson get her 38, 40 points and guard everybody else? But A'ja Wilson is also so much where she can facilitate as well out of the paint too. So it's a tough thing to balance.
What changes do you think the Aces are going to make? Like, we know what the Fever are going to do. They're going to try and dial up the tempo, and with their personnel, there's not a ton they can do. What do you expect to see from the Aces as they try to neutralize the home court advantage that the Fever are going to have tomorrow night?
I mean, I think what they did with Kelsey Mitchell on Tuesday was really effective. Obviously, Kelsey had 34 points in game one. I think she was limited to 14 or 16. I don't remember off the top of my head in game two. And obviously, what the Fever mentioned was there was a lot of fouling on Tuesday, and that really messed up their flow. And the Aces were called for 22 fouls, and the Fever were called for 19. But the Aces shot more free throws because the Fever committed more shooting fouls. So I think something that really takes the Fever out of their flow is when they commit shooting fouls, and then they have to obviously let the Aces take those free throws. So I think that's something they're really going to try, and the Aces are really going to try to draw those fouls as much as they possibly can.
It will be interesting to see how that game is officiated, because it is going to go a long way in dictating how things are unfold. That's the word, how things unfold based on how tightly it is officiated, especially on the rim.
That's something Aaliyah Boston mentioned today also after practice, that because somebody asked her, do you want to come out physically from the start, or do you try to feel it out before you decide how physical you're going to be? And she said it really hinges on the referees, and it really hinges on how tight of a game that they're calling, which is not something you can really know pregame or before the game. Like, obviously you can have an idea of it based on who's officiating the game. But obviously, as we know about WNBA officials, they can be the same official, call one game some way and call another game a different way. So they don't have much of a precedent in how the game will be officiated until you play the game.
That's fun. I'd imagine there will be. I'm curious to see how much of a feeling out process there is at the beginning of the game, both in terms of the fouls and just as teams kind of figure each other out. Like they have, first game back in Indiana. I'm curious to see how much there is just kind of nibbling around the edges by both sides and which one is able to kind of take the reins and go at them right away. Chloe, any other big thoughts here before we dive into the Q&A portion of the show?
I don't think so.
Covered it all?
Yeah.
Let's start with this one. Beavers should not let the Aces dictate the pace. They need to play past tempo where they thrive better. I concur with that. That's a tight read.
I agree.
Okay. How do the coaches and medical team decide what injuries a player can play through versus what they can't? Like Lexi's back versus Chloe's knee and Caitlin Clark's groin or ankle.
I mean, I'm not sure specifically. I would think it is. Obviously, with Lexi, it was something she played through on Sunday. Stephanie White said Lexi suffered the injury on Sunday during the first quarter, and she just played through it then. And then it kind of got worse overnight with, sleeping and everything like that, and it swelling up. So I think it's dependent on that, and it's also dependent on how much in-game shape you are. Like, obviously, when Caitlin Clark got injured on July 15th, she was shut down from doing really anything for a few weeks until she started doing individual workouts again, and then she got the left ankle bone bruise on August 7th, and she was out of the game ready shape, I think, which was a portion of it as well. So Lexi Hull is still in game shape, obviously, and it's something she can work through. But with Caitlin Clark specifically, she was out of game shape and she was still not able to test out that groin really well because of that left ankle bone bruise too. So I think it was one of those things. And with Chloe Bibby's knee as well, I think it was one of the same things. Like Stephanie White mentioned, her knee swelled up a lot with the travel, and that made it hard for her to work out or really do anything. And it got bad enough that it was obviously ruled out for the season. And Chloe Bibby was putting up shots today following the Fever's practice, but she was not part of the Fever's practice at all. So I think it's just, assessing it in time. And, if Lexi Hull's back injury is bad enough that she needed to be shut down, I'm sure she would have been. But it's also like one of those things. There were multiple times last year when, in 2024, when Caitlin Clark tweaked her ankle in a way, and she would leave the floor for maybe a quarter and then come back and play. I think that's one of those same things too.
Next question. Apologies. I'm dealing with something separate right now. Why would they put Sophie Cunningham on the roster and not Caitlin Clark? I'm assuming that's a reference to the active roster. And also, I would not imagine that Sophie Cunningham would be on the active roster.
I think that is just a glitch. I think I know what this person's talking about in terms of what this question is. Because I saw on the box score, it says Sophie Cunningham is out for a, right knee injury. And that insinuates, she is on the active roster, but she is not. It's likely a glitch in the Aces system because they also said Damiris Dantas was out because of a coach's decision, which was incorrect. So, Sophie Cunningham, Chloe Bibby, Caitlin Clark, Sydney Colson, Ari McDonald, none of them are on the active roster for the playoffs. They're all left off the playoff roster, so none of them can come back. Damiris Dantas is on the playoff roster, but she's obviously out with concussion protocol as of now.
Question we addressed at the top of the show, so I'll just touch on it really quickly. Is Damiris Dantas playing tomorrow? We're still under concussion protocol. Do you think her injury is quite serious? For the first part, I would say unlikely, still under concussion protocol. Is that your read on it, Chloe?
Yes. Steph said there was no update on Dantas today. So my guess is she will still be out tomorrow.
And then see, are you guys going to do another post-game show live with Tony tomorrow? The answer is yes. That is the plan. Going back to these questions, let's see. Saw Bibby at shoot around. Are all OFS players off the active roster?
Be right back.
Great. So now I'm here left to riff. So what we're going to do is, while I take a quick call here, is we're going to throw up the banner for a minute. So bear with us. We have a bunch of questions lined up. Keep throwing the questions in the queue, and as soon as Chloe gets her charger back and I finish on this phone call, we will be right back with you guys. Joys of live television. And we're back. That was fun. A little commercial break. Eventually, when we get sponsored, I don't know, Chloe can pick a company. Amazon Prime.
Get my computer charger. Rip.
Amazon Prime maybe can. Amazon Prime can do it for all Chloe's corner content. All right, so back on track here. Saw Chloe Bibby at shoot around. Are all OFS players off the active player roster? I know you've been asked this forever more time with feeling. Thanks, Chloe, for all that you do.
Yes. I mean, as I did mention, I'm sure that question was before I mentioned it. But yeah, all the out for the season players, Sophie Cunningham, Chloe Bibby, Caitlin Clark, Sydney Colson, Erin McDonald are all off the active playoff roster. So they are not eligible to return for the postseason. I saw another comment that was like, with Dantas missing this game or missing multiple games because of concussion protocol, could Caitlin come back? And there's the question. I saw the tweet about the loophole. I was tagged in it multiple times, but that refers to somebody who is on the playoff roster that could be like reactivated in a sense, who was hurt. But so Caitlin Clark is off the playoff roster. She's not on the active roster in any way, so she cannot come back, nor can any of the other 5 players out for the season. So I did double check with that, and Caitlin Clark cannot come back, nor has she been practicing with the team, so she would not be in a game-ready shape.
Again, I thought people would be mad about the silence, but instead they're saying that is a bunch of crap, what y'all are saying about CC. I don't know what we said that was so inflammatory beyond the facts, but bless you for listening, David, and stay angry, brother. Let's see here. Do the Fever have a shot tomorrow, Chloe?
I mean, I think so. They beat the Aces twice during the regular season and beat them in Vegas for the first time in franchise history on Sunday. So I think it just all depends. I think first on the officiating, how tight of a game is called, and then, if the Fever are able to get to that pace that they're able to.
Fun fact for no one tell, by the way, I was looking this up before we went on air. 11 of the 18 teams to win Game 3 in these best-of-5 semifinals go on to win the series. So 11-7 if you win Game 3. Not necessarily a massive trend. I realized that as I got kind of halfway through it. Wow, this is a waste of time, but we finished it because we were completionists here at the Indianapolis Star. So if the Fever win, they have just about a 50-50% chance of moving on in a best-of-5. Moving on. Are you guys going to do another post-game show with Tony? Yes, I'm going to keep revisiting that comment to keep plugging it. Make sure to tune in, subscribe, ring the bell so you know when we go live. Who do the Fever protect during the expansion draft? Now, Chloe, this is a topic that we've touched on before and we'll undoubtedly touch on again. But as it sits now, who are the ones that you protect?
Well, it's interesting because the WNBA has not announced the terms for this expansion draft, which I imagine are going to be different than the last expansion draft because there are 2 teams. It's also interesting because the Fever only have 3 players under contract for next year. And that is the case for a lot of teams, I would say. Every player, all but 2 veterans, which are players not on a rookie contract, all but 2 veterans are free agents next year because all of them are anticipating a significant change in the salary cap. So they did not want to, they didn't want to sign, obviously, past 2025. So the last expansion draft, they were able to protect 6 players. All of the players they protected. Not all of them are under contract, actually. They protected Kelsey Mitchell, and they were able to core Kelsey Mitchell, obviously. But we don't know the terms of that either. I think it's a terrible time for Portland and Toronto to come into the league, but that's neither here nor there. But I think when it comes to who the Fever should protect, they're obviously going to protect Caitlin and Aaliyah. And I would think Kelsey Mitchell as well, assuming, once again, with the CBA, that the core years don't go down from 3 or from 2 to 1, because technically Kelsey Mitchell is eligible to be cored again next year if the core years do not change. And I think they would protect her anyway so she doesn't get picked. But I mean, if they can't core her, she's an unrestricted free agent, so it doesn't really matter if they protect her or not. Because even if Toronto, hypothetically drafted Kelsey Mitchell in the expansion draft, she'd be an unrestricted free agent, so she wouldn't have to sign with them. So I would say Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Kelsey Mitchell if she's eligible to be cored once again. And then Lexi Hull is a restricted free agent, so they would keep her rights, and I would think they would core her again. Michaela Timpson is under contract as well, and she has shown, obviously, a lot of potential, so I think they would core her. But then kind of after that, it gets a little bit dicey because Sophie Cunningham's an unrestricted free agent. Natasha Howard's an unrestricted free agent. Basically, everybody's an unrestricted free agent. So I think those 5 are the ones I would think would be home runs. But that also all depends on the CBA. So who knows?
It's fun. That's fun. And it's got to be fun for the front office, too, where you're just sitting here in limbo, coming up with all these. They're probably running through, 15. Amber Cox probably running through 15, 20 different scenarios at least, trying to figure out how they address different variations of what this new CBA could look like. Chloe, who, if anyone, is on the playoff roster can be reactivated?
I don't think anybody can. I mean, obviously, other than Damaris Dantas. But she's technically active right now. I think what was circulating when it came to the who could be reactivated thing was in general about, Caitlin Clark potentially coming back. But the Fever don't have anybody on the playoff roster that is out other than Damaris Dantas right now.
I want to see Hull and Power and Turner in one lineup combination, then put Kelsey or Sims in AB. That's combined defense and offense. Chloe, your thoughts?
I mean, they do put AB, Bree Turner, Hull, and Kelsey or Sims. That's a lineup that they use a good amount because especially when, Natasha Howard has had some games where she struggles defensively. And in those games, they put Bree Turner in pretty early. So they've had those lineups where it's, Odyssey Sims, Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hull, Bree Turner, and Aaliyah Boston. And I think those lineups are pretty effective in the sense of, obviously, Bree Turner is not a big scorer like, Kelsey Mitchell or Aaliyah Boston, but she's pretty effective offensively. She can obviously set screens. She can help space things out. So I like that lineup for the defensive punch that Bree Turner brings.
I think we're in for a big Natasha Howard game tomorrow night. It feels like she kind of goes in those where she has like those little lulls and then she pops off. Or do you think that the matchup with Vegas, maybe that's more the cause of some of her struggles this series?
I'm not sure. I feel like Natasha Howard has had some games just throughout the season where she struggled defensively, and that's why they've started using Brianna Turner more. But I think, obviously, with Nalissa Smith, with Asia Wilson, that is a tough matchup to go up against, especially Nalissa Smith scored, I think it was 16 points on Tuesday. So her and Asia Wilson together, when they can get going in the front court, that's really hard to guard.
I was hoping you'd vamp just a little bit longer. I'm going to look up the Natasha Howard splits here against Las Vegas. But in the meantime, we'll move on to another question. Somebody else says, whoever wins tomorrow will win the series, so they got to come with energy. I don't know. I could see this kind of going like it did in Vegas, where the Beaver win game 1 or win game 3. The Aces get pissed off. They come back and they win game 4. I could also see it going the other way, where the Beaver lose game 3. They come back into the same situation that we've seen them time and time again this season, where it's like, surely this is the end. This is going to be curtains for them. Then they win a game and they force game 5 and again pull a rabbit out of their hat out there in Vegas, find a way to advance. But Chloe, what's your read on things?
Yeah, I don't know. As I said before, it really depends on the officiating, and if the Fever can get the pace they want tomorrow, I could see it going either way. Obviously, the Fever fans are always really loud, but the Aces have also had a lot of experience with that. Obviously, they have a core group that won in 2022 and 2023, and doing that requires winning games on the road. So it's not necessarily something they're not used to.
Natasha Howard, by the way, against it disappeared. Never mind. We'll go back to it eventually. Let's see here. There's one above that. Bree Turner doesn't spread the floor whatsoever, ? LOL.
I mean, she helps the screen is kind of what I was getting at. So.
Okay. How many active players do you have to play or forfeit? That's 9 or 8, right? 8 is the magic number.
That's 8 in the regular season, but I'm not entirely sure if there's anything different for the playoffs.
And that is not for lack of effort. I can't confirm. Chloe's been trying to find that information for that as well. 12 points for Natasha Howard, it looks like, across 3 games versus the Aces, 5 steals, 5 assists. That's an average of 12 points, over 3 games. 12 points over 3 games on average, 13 for 21 shooting against the Aces. So we'll see. Why do you think Caitlin Clark is still doing one-on-one work if she's out for the season or not practicing with the team? I think people see videos, and that's what get rumors going about her coming back. I feel like that is an instance of a lot of people just seeing what they want to see and kind of ignoring the words. What do you think?
Well, I think having Caitlin Clark be out for the season doesn't mean she completely shut down, is my take on it. And that's what I think was the disconnect between some fans versus, what the Fever were trying to say. They thought, Caitlin being ruled out for the season means they were shutting her down, which was not the case. It just means she was not able to get back to game shape in time for season. And she's obviously been doing, one-on-one work for a while now. And I think if she were to stop the one-on-one work, she would obviously regress back again too. So they want to keep her in shape relatively because, if she just stops doing everything right now, that would obviously make it more work for her to, ramp back up when it comes to her doing off-season workouts, when it comes to then ramping back up for next season. But they don't have a timeline necessarily anymore. They don't have a fast timeline. They have until, next April, barring a lockout, once again, CBA. But I think she's continuing to do the one-on-one work because she wants to stay in workout shape. Mm-hmm. So she
doesn't want to have to relearn her shot coming back.
Yeah. She doesn't need to shut down entirely. She's just not able to get back to game shape in time for the season. And
it is good to see some of those clips, I will admit, of her moving around, working out so that it isn't, that paralyzing at this point after however many weeks it's been since she was hurt. 2 of the same questions here regarding both Unrivaled and play elsewhere. The first one also involves Kelsey Mitchell joining Unrivaled. Do you think Caitlin Clark will play somewhere in the offseason?
I wouldn't count on it. I don't think she'll do Unrivaled because 3-on-3 is a different type of game than 5-on-5. obviously. And I think some players just don't want to play 3-on-3, which is completely fine. And I think Caitlin Clark is one of those players because, 3-on-3 is, a lot faster. It's obviously different in the sense of how many people you have on the court in that sense. I think if she does any kind of off season, she would play Athletes Unlimited. But I also think she might just, Athletes Unlimited is 5-on-5. But I think if anything, she doesn't want to risk getting injured again, especially with how quickly she came back, got injured, came back, got injured type of thing. And, she can find 9 people, whether, she just picks them off the street. She could hire 9 people to play basketball with her. So I don't think she'll play in any kind of official league, but she'll obviously be ramping back up and finding ways to play team basketball, I would think.
Kelsey Mitchell probably takes the winter off, would you think?
I would think so. She obviously got the time off bonus from the Fever, but that at this point only restricts overseas basketball. So Kelsey Mitchell is regulated to no more than 90 days, maybe less depending on the terms, but no more than 90 days of playing basketball overseas. But she also has that broken finger that she's been playing through this entire season. So
wild.
I think she's going to take some time off, probably get that finger fixed. Who knows? Maybe she doesn't want to get the finger fixed because she's having like the best season of her life on a broken finger on her shooting hand. So, but I think she'll probably take the season off, probably get her finger fixed. And yeah.
Why is it that when they brought in hardship players, they didn't have to ramp up, but Caitlin Clark had to ramp up? And I feel like this is just a kind of an apples and oranges comparison, Chloe, and I'll let you explain it.
I mean, I think those players weren't coming back from injury. They were. Ariel Powers talked about it. She was in Turkey playing basketball when she got the call to coach to the Fever. And I think, and obviously there's also the thing where, Odyssey Sims wasn't good in the first 1 or 2 games she played for the Fever. Ariel Powers, she was pretty decent in that first game against Minnesota, but she didn't play those big minutes. So there is a ramp up period in a sense, but they're just doing it in game and they don't have to worry about injuries or getting re-injured in any kind of sense either.
It's also important to remember, in Odyssey Sims' case, she'd played recently. Chloe Bibby had been in with the Valkyries, and then she was playing over in China as part of an international event where she won gold. So, they were playing. So it's a different kind of ramp up. But, they did address that where it's difficult, like Chloe just mentioned, where you're coming in. You have 2 days to get ready, if that. If you're lucky, you get 2 days. Otherwise, it's just kind of you get a day to say hi to everybody, and then you're thrown into the fire and have to go.
Yeah, the ramp up from injury is very different than a ramp up from you just need to learn the playbook type of thing.
Take questions here for another 12 minutes or so make sure to throw them into the live chat, and we'll get to as many as we can. Did I miss your response to the text circulating RE elevating a player on an existing contract? Should another player be ruled out with injury? Has that been going around, by the way?
Yeah, I talked about it a little bit ago, which with the other question about Damiris Dantas being the loophole. But yeah, they cannot elevate a player who is not on the playoff roster, is what I'm told. So Caitlin Clark isn't on the playoff roster. Obviously, Chloe Bibby's not on the playoff roster. And obviously, Sydney Colson, Erin McDonald, Sophie Cunningham, all not on the playoff roster. So they are not eligible to return at all during the postseason. I'm not sure where that text or that screenshot came from that was circulating around Twitter, but it is not true in the sense that Caitlin is not able to come back at all this season.
Is it confirmed the text is incorrect then?
I am not sure about the text specifically. So there might be something different where, not in the Fever's case, because the Fever have Damiris Dantas obviously out right now, but it could be in the sense of if there was another injured player on the playoff roster, they could be activated. But in terms of Caitlin Clark can come back because Damiris Dantas is out, that is incorrect.
Yeah. It's a good question, valid question. Appreciate Britt bringing that up. I honestly had no idea. I'm just happily not on certain sections of Twitter. Aside from a knee injury while I was Bibby sidelined, she started very well in her early games. I feel like it was I guess there was a dip in there in playing time right before the knee injury, which was puzzling, I would say. Like that stretch of games, Chloe, when you were out, I think it was against Dallas when they couldn't shoot to save their lives right before the Connecticut comeback. And I personally was wondering why Chloe Bibby wasn't plugged in there, and it felt like a little bit like Stephanie White and the coaching staff had this plan in mind of how they wanted it to look, and they weren't going to deviate from that plan, and Chloe Bibby didn't fit into it. I think it was maybe because of speed or something. Either way, that was puzzling, but now it's the injury. But what did you make of Chloe Bibby's start in first few weeks with the fever?
I think it was one of those things where, a lot of coaches, when it gets to later in the regular season, they shorten up their rosters in a sense. They shorten up the rotations. Nate Tibbetts from Phoenix, he talked about it in August. He was running with an 8-player rotation. And that meant 3 players were not playing. And I think that was one of the things that Stephanie White was trying to do too, which anticipating going into the playoffs, you're trying to shorten up your rotation and get those really effective rotations lineups on the court. And I think that was the case too.
Chloe is very easily distracted, and I'm still adjusting to this a couple months into our tenure. How about this, Chloe? Kelsey Mitchell.
That's what I was looking at.
Wonderful timing. Kelsey Mitchell announces that she's joining Unrivaled literal seconds after, as we were saying, that she probably would want to sit this out just to heal. Kelsey Mitchell is playing in Unrivaled season 2. Wonderful stuff there. A bit surprised, but that'll be fun.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting because she did sign that time off bonus with the fever, but that only refers to overseas.
Yeah. I'm going to let Chloe tweet that out because I can hear her typing over there. So we're going to let her fire off that tweet. Again, just remarkable timing with Kelsey Mitchell joining Unrivaled in its second season. Lexi Hull was announced just a couple days ago, correct? Yes. Information we already knew on that side of things. With regards to the coaching staff, it demonstrates rigidity and coaching strategy, and they lost games that hurt when playoffs arrived. I mean, that's fair. There's always going to be coaching decisions that you disagree with, and they had their reasons, and there might have been more to it than what we see as outsiders. So just in terms of strategy and things like that with the Dallas matchup, specifically with Chloe Bibby. So it happens. It's interesting. That's part of what makes sports fun. Chloe, are you back with us? And tweet has been sent. All right, here's a good one for you, one that you and I have been talking about offline. What do you know about one of the Fever assistant coaches being targeted for a coaching job?
Well, I mean, Bree January has been in the head coaching conversations for the past, at least last season, possibly the seasons before that. And I think, and she has taken interviews before last season, for head coaching jobs. And I think Steph White has talked about it multiple times, especially when she had to, miss those 2 games against Chicago and then against Golden State for a family emergency. Austin Kelly was the acting head coach, and Bree January obviously took on a bigger role. And Steph White talked about how she thinks both Austin Kelly and Bree January are going to be head coaches in the W in the near future. And especially, Bree January has been rumored for the Seattle job, specifically I've seen, because her last season playing as a player was with Seattle under the same, front office management that they have now. So she has that relationship with Seattle, but obviously, as Bree January talked about today that I wrote a story about, or she talked about it a few days ago in Vegas, but I wrote the story today about it. She's not thinking about those opportunities right now. She's open to them, but that's not something she's thinking about while the Fever are going through the playoffs. So that's something she will address in the offseason.
Is that something our WNBA coach, do they allow franchise, they allowed to reach out to coaches at this point of the season, or is there like a moratorium like there is in some other sports? Sorry to put you on the spot with that.
I'm not sure about that specifically. I'm not sure if there's a specific moratorium, but obviously I think in most cases, assistants don't want to talk about or take away from preparing for, what they're doing right now to take an interview.
Any word on if the Fever will do exit interviews? I'll just answer this quickly. Yes. And it's plans for what, the day after the season wraps, tentatively?
Yeah, it depends on, when the season is over, how far they get, everything like that. But the plan as of right now is all players would do an exit interview.
I don't think you have an official timeline, so I'll allow you to speculate wildly on when you think a CBA will get done and the FIFA will be allowed to, and teams in general will be allowed to shore up their 2026 roster.
Yeah, I don't think there's any pulse on any team because it all depends on the CBA. Free agency is technically supposed to start in January. That won't happen if there's no CBA. Then, the expansion draft is supposed to happen in December. That won't happen unless there's a new CBA. So it all just depends on when the CBA is agreed to. And it sounds like from what Brianna Stewart, who is one of the main negotiators, she's part of the WNBPA Executive Council. She has not talked, or she has not said great things about how the CBA is going. So I'm not confident it's going to be agreed to before the deadline on October 31st.
You always have to take those comments from both sides kind of with a little grain of salt, I guess, just because there's always public jockeying and whatnot, but it really does sound bad. Where she said it, Nafisa Collier said, I mean, everybody's been pretty vocal on this. It's been shit so far, and it's not getting any better. So not great. Not a great outlook thus far. We answered this earlier, but if Lexi can't play, how many active players they have left, assuming she and Demir Stantz are out? The magic number is 9. Correct, Chloe? 9?
Yes.
9. Caitlin Clark hasn't done an interview in a long time. Is that her decision or the organization's decision? She doesn't have to, right? Because she's hurt,
No.
So it's kind of like a...
Hurt players don't have to do media. So,
yeah.
I mean, she could if she wanted to, but they don't have to force her. So,
yeah. And to some extent, why would she want to, I guess?
Why would you talk to the media if you don't have to?
Yeah. Like if there's anything major to update, I feel like in this day and age, either hop on a podcast, post it on Instagram, or text Chloe Peterson. So that's how I would approach it, at least. Chloe, let's, as we land the plane here, look at the series. Obviously, both series tied at 1 apiece. Phoenix could have won, maybe even should have won game 1, come back to force overtime, win a wild game 2. That series has been more competitive than I was kind of expecting. That's a pretty good one. Yeah,
the Minnesota Phoenix, I was watching it right before the Fever played Vegas on Tuesday, and they came back from, it was like a 21-point deficit on Minnesota's home court. That was a very fun game, I would say.
Yeah. Crazy finish. You likened it to the one of between Atlanta and the Fever in game 3. Similar energy. It was a lot of fun to watch there. One question here, a good one that I've seen a decent amount. Is it not a remarkable conflict of interest for Fisa Collier and Stewie to be leading CBA negotiations while benefiting immensely from the uncertainty with the lockout?
I mean, I don't necessarily think they would benefit immensely from the lockout. It would be more of a problem if they said, if we can't come to terms with the WNBA, we're going to extend the Unrivaled season into what would be the WNBA season.
Mm-hmm.
But whether there was a CBA negotiation or not right now, Unrivaled would run at the same times it is running. So I think there is a small type of conflict of interest in the sense of, obviously they have a competing league, but it's not. The only way I think it would become a huge issue is if they tried to tell players, we don't want to come to this decision because we want Unrivaled to play when the WNBA is playing. So
it'll be interesting too to see how KK, or not KK, I'm sorry, I was looking at a comment, how Unrivaled becomes a leverage piece, if it becomes a leverage piece in these WNBA negotiations, specifically on the financial side. She clarifies she's not on the timing, on investments, et cetera. They're benefiting from drawing this out. I don't think anybody's really benefiting from drawing this out, right? Because, I mean, they're going to be up on contracts too. So Nafisa Collier is going to be getting a bag. Brianna Stewart's going to be getting a bag. So I probably don't want to drag it out any more than anybody. They have family. They have to, in Collier's case, she's going to have to be flying out to New York or wherever for these negotiations. That's a pain in the butt. I don't know. Do you see a conflict of interest in that way of drawing it out?
I don't think they would be getting any more investments for Unrivaled with the CBA not existing or the CBA not being agreed to. Like, obviously, Nafisa and Brianna Stewart, they founded Unrivaled, but they're not the ones doing the negotiating either with marketing for Unrivaled. But yeah.
Why does it have to be 3-on-3? I hate it. That's Chloe's fault.
Yeah.
Why not start KK on Asia just to, I'm assuming, to adjust or to handle the physicality? Thoughts on starting KK?
I think Aaliyah Boston is a lot more physical than KK. So,
yeah.
Aaliyah Boston also has a lot more experience.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Chloe. Anything else you want to get to before we plug our show tomorrow night one last time with the one comment asking about it?
I don't think so. Got to go write about Kelsey Mitchell doing Unrivaled.
Oh, that's fun for you. It's exciting. It's going to crash into our happy hour time, but that's fine. Again, yes, on the post-game show, thank you again, BrainNY0808, for that comment. We appreciate you asking, and I appreciate the opportunity to plug the show. Chloe, Tony, and I will be back on Friday for a post-game show. Same thing on Sunday. Continue with the post-game shows. Those have been really popular. And again, appreciate everybody watching those. Appreciate everybody tuning in here today on the short notice. Well, not really short notice, but coming in on a Thursday afternoon, hanging out with us, asking questions. Got up to 100 today, which is just fun to say out loud.
Nice.
For Chloe and I, concurrent viewers. So thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications when we do go live. It'll be a late show on Friday. Hopefully not as late on Sunday. Chloe has stories up. I got stories up. Josh Heron, our third reporter, will have stories up. We'll have the live blog. We're going to have everything you want and more. So be sure to stay here and follow us on social media and all that stuff. And thank you guys so much. We'll talk to you again soon.